my analogy to the British exit, to the Brexit movement, was really what the exit poll showed about people's desire for change, right, and desire for real change, just not the type of change that gets talked about on cable TV. So that's when I felt that, well, if this is correct, if this is correct, you'll see it start to roll across what we call the core four, which is the four we felt we had to win, to give ourselves multiple paths to victory, which was Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, and Iowa. We always felt that Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, places like that would always be in play because of this populist message.
Let's springboard off of that and have a conversation. I've got with me here in D.C. CNN Politics Executive Editor Mark Preston, CNN political commentator S.E. Cupp, Reed Wilson is here, national correspondent for The Hill, and CNN chief political analyst Gloria Borger. Actually, S.E., my twin in purple on this day after election. Let me begin with you. Just listening to Steve Bannon, he talked about he thinks it was people's desire for change.
Yeah, and specifically not the kind of change that you hear about on cable news. And I think that's interesting. He's right, because in polite circles, and I like to think that cable news is still a somewhat polite circle, you don't openly court white nationalist voters. And so I think in identifying the kind of change that maybe other people were embarrassed to acknowledge, maybe a little bit in denial about, in putting that front and center, and I think Kirsten Powers noted this in an earlier segment, sort of a nostalgia factor to a certain group of people who want to restore what they had and think that the people around them are the reason they don't have it anymore. I think he's absolutely right that they were willing to have that conversation. They were willing to acknowledge that kind of change that people like us kind of refused.
But wasn't this also,
election.
forgive me, but just sort of a proverbial middle finger to this town and to what this town has represented for so many years and the dysfunction in Congress?
And not only to this town, but to the changing face of the American economy. I mean, the states that he talked about, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, they've lost millions of manufacturing jobs that frankly are never coming back. The car factories and the air conditioner company that moved to Mexico, those jobs aren't coming back, and that's something that has been at the core of this voter angst. In this case, very specific voters in those very specific states for a very long time. I mean, going on 25 years now. It starts with the things that Donald Trump has railed against: NAFTA, CAFTA, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I mean, those trade deals impact the nation as a whole on a positive. They impact those specific voters very negatively.
Well, and my friend Crystal Ball has a great piece up right now on Huffington Post. I know you know her. It's called. The headline is "The Democratic Party Deserved to Die," and she notes that the Democrats' response to exactly that anger and those jobs leaving was, well, we'll offer you retraining programs for new jobs. And that just didn't satisfy a large group of people.
You want to jump in?
Yeah, I think when we try to go back and explain what happened is that we all got it wrong. We all got it wrong, and we all got it wrong, right? And the fact of the matter is, anybody that says they didn't get it wrong, then they're lying to you, okay? But I do think that we're seeing, to Reed's point, this change in the political landscape. It's not just the Republican Party, it's the Democratic Party. We saw it with Bernie Sanders. We didn't understand it with that. We didn't understand how a 70-year-old man or 71-year-old man could actually appeal.
Do you think she fully appreciated what he did and who he touched, the young people?
I think at the very end she realized it, but I don't think that she was able to harness it. And I do think that Donald Trump, one of the big takeaways for me is if you do get 17,000 people to show up at a rally consistently, those 17,000 people are going to vote. I never thought they would all vote. I thought that a lot of it
people kept saying, oh, stop making the point about all the people at the rallies. That doesn't translate into votes.
And you know what? The anger is there, and that anger fueled them to go wait in line and to cast a vote.
Let me go to Gloria, even though she's not sitting next to us. I want to hear from you, Gloria Borger, because something I noted last hour, and I just want to point it out again. When you look at this past political cycle, you think of Donald Trump and what he's accomplished. He crushed not just two political dynasties in the Bush family, and now the Clintons.
Yeah, and he knocked down a big blue wall. He crushed not only those political dynasties, but he crushed the political establishment completely, some of whom he has to work with in the Congress. And by the way, most of them will be lining up at his door to work with him because he won, and a lot of them came in on his coattails now. So we're going to have this strange marriage of people who didn't want Donald Trump to be president in the Republican Party and now discover that they have to work with him because they understand the chord that he struck. You know, he ripped the Band-Aid off politics in this country, and what he exposed was this deep anxiety that Mark was talking about. And another thing I want to point out, I got these numbers today that Democratic participation in presidential elections has gone down over the last few cycles, from 69 million to 66 to 60 million. And Republican participation has remained the same. So if you're a Democratic poobah and you're kind of looking at this and you're saying, gee, we lost 9 million people over the last few cycles, what are we doing wrong here? And where are they going? And why aren't they coming out? And that's something Bernie Sanders, I think, spoke to, but it wasn't something that Hillary Clinton tackled particularly well.
Well, I mean, now it's not just a Republican who will be in the White House. It is a Republican, a majority across the board, Congress and this House right here on Pennsylvania Avenue. Do you think, if Speaker Ryan was like on his hands and knees for how many months, this is his dream scenario, is it not?
Well, this is not his dream candidate, but this is definitely his dream scenario. Of course. I mean, you can't understate how extraordinary this wave was. And I think in part, it's for all of the things that we've talked about, the economic factors, but it's also that Hillary Clinton was a singularly terrible candidate, and not like secretly. The stuff we knew about Hillary Clinton that was going to make her unelectable was stuff we have known for a long time. And I think the Democratic Party really shot itself in the foot by protecting Hillary for as long as it did, refusing to look at any other options, refusing to acknowledge her weaknesses, and sort of foisting her on an unwilling electorate.
You don't think she was self-foisted? You don't think she wanted that?
Oh, she absolutely
You're
wanted
just saying the Democratic Party should have offered up.
Absolutely protected and insulated, and there's no doubt about that. Two things about going forward, right?
Yeah.
Policy-wise, the Supreme Court, the Republican Party, 24 hours ago was saying to themselves, "Oh my God, we've lost the Supreme Court." Well, guess what? They just got the Supreme Court back. Right. The second thing is the Democratic National Committee. There is no leader of the Democratic Party right now. That means the grassroots are going to take back that. And guess what? Donald Trump is going to take over the RNC. You know what that means? That means he's going to help shape the National Party and push it back into the grassroots. So the idea that this is going to be this wall between the establishment here in Washington, D.C. and the grassroots is probably going to be broken down.
Today, everyone's sort of bleary-eyed. It's almost like some people are celebrating a wedding. For others, it's like a funeral. Walk us through this. Final thoughts, Reed.
I think if you delve deeper into the numbers, as he mentioned, this is the Republican wave was bigger not only at the federal level but also at the state level. Consider the fact that states like Kentucky and Iowa are now totally controlled by Republicans. Democratic state executive office holders lost across the country. This is a huge deal. And by the way, I think it's a dream scenario for Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell because Donald Trump comes into the White House with just a very few number of key policy priorities: repeal Obamacare, build a wall with Mexico. And when you don't have that much on your plate, that means that the power to drive the agenda shifts to the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue. I think Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan have a lot more to say about the future of the Republican agenda than maybe they would under pretty much any other Republican president.
Gloria, final question.
I'm going to say, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask what you would think. I mean, Hillary Clinton, other than taking a very long, deep sigh, breath, maybe a good cry, what is next for her?
It's really hard to say. I think clearly now, there was talk, if she was getting elected, of closing the Clinton Foundation. It seems to me that probably won't happen right now. And I think that she's got to rethink everything. After you've spent, 30 years in public life, and suddenly you're not in public life, and you have a loss that people think you should have won, you have to reevaluate. What was so striking to me about Hillary Clinton, and Dana Bash and I were talking about it earlier with our chief digital editor here in D.C., Rachel Smokin, we were talking about the fact that the first thing Hillary Clinton said today was, "I'm sorry," which women always say the first thing.
Yeah, she did.
When they do something wrong, right? When we lose. And it was sort of striking to us to hear that from Hillary Clinton, because you could see that she was taking the burden on herself, and that she felt that she had disappointed all these people, particularly women, who supported her and had worked with her for decades. So I don't think she's going to rush into doing something completely different. I do think she has to kind of reevaluate where she is in public life and in private life.
Okay, very quickly.
Just very quickly, we talk about dynasties at the top. Let's close it with this. Chelsea Clinton, we saw on stage. There's rumored that she's going to be running at some point in the future. And George P. Bush, who was one of the Bushes, who actually got behind Donald Trump.
Wow.
In Texas.
Oof, Mark Preston, thank you. Thank you all so much for throwing that down. Coming up here, one of Trump's